The slap landed like thunder across Blake Harlan's cheek. The sting blooming hot and immediate in the opulent dining room of the Harlan family estate in Savannah, Georgia. Her mother's manicured hand withdrew slowly, trembling not from regret but from the fury that had finally cracked the porcelain facade of Southern gentility. "You're no blood of mine if you drag this filth into our home," Evelyn Harlan hissed, her voice a venomous whisper that sliced deeper than the blow. Eyes narrowed to slits behind her pearl earrings. Blake staggered back, her wine glass shattering against the mahogany table, red Cabernet pooling like spilled secrets across the lace tablecloth. 35. She'd built an empire from the ground up, Harlan Ventures, a logistics firm that shipped half the peaches in the state, but in this room, she was still just the golden goose, the wallet her family had plucked dry since her father's death a decade ago. And now, for loving Jordan, she was the sinner they could finally sacrifice. The air hung thick with the scent of magnolias from the garden beyond the French doors, but it did nothing to sweeten the rot of betrayal settling in Blake's chest. Her brother Marcus leaned back in his chair, smirking like he'd won a poker hand, while Aunt Lydia clutched her cross necklace, murmuring prayers under her breath. Jordan stood frozen beside Blake, her fingers still laced through hers under the tablecloth, a lifeline in the storm. 28. With that wild auburn hair and eyes like smoked honey, Jordan had crashed into Blake's ordered world 6 months ago at a Charleston art gallery, fierce, unapologetic, a tattoo artist whose ink told stories of rebellion and rebirth. They'd stolen kisses in moonlit alleys, whispered dreams in tangled sheets, built something real amid the humid nights of the Lowcountry. But real didn't belong in the Harlan dynasty. Filth. Jordan's voice broke the silence first, low and edged with that Brooklyn grit she could never quite shake, even after 3 years chasing Southern light. She rose slowly, her chair scraping like a challenge, her tank top shifting to reveal the rose vine tattoo curling up her arm, a bloom for every scar life had etched. "That's what you call love? The kind that kept Blake up nights wiring you money for your charity galas and Marcus's gambling debts? Y'all been bleeding her dry, calling it family." Evelyn's laugh was brittle, a champagne flute tinkling over ice. "Love? This is delusion. Girl. A phase. Blake knows her place, knows the Harlan name stands for something pure, something God-fearing. You've poisoned her. Turned her from the woman who honored her father by keeping this roof over our heads." She gestured grandly at the crystal chandelier above, its prisms catching the candlelight like false halos. Blake's cheek throbbed, but it was the tears slipping down her mother's face that gutted her. Evelyn Harlan, queen of garden clubs and debutante balls, had always been the architect of their illusions, widowed young. She'd molded Blake into the provider, the fixer, funneling her daughter's earnings into the family coffers to maintain the facade of old money. Loans for Uncle Ray's failed cotton farm, bailouts for Marcus's poker runs in Atlantic City, even the down payment on Aunt Lydia's beach cottage in Tybee Island. Blake had signed the checks without question, because that's what family did. Or so she'd told herself, burying the resentment under board meetings and bourbon neat. But Jordan had unearthed it all. Their first date, a stolen weekend in the Smoky Mountains, where Blake confessed over campfire esmeraldas how she'd traded her dreams of painting for spreadsheets, how the Harlan legacy felt like chains disguised as heirlooms. Jordan had listened, then kissed her slow and sure under the stars, murmuring, "You're more than their vault, baby. You're a goddamn masterpiece." In the months since, they'd carved out a life, lazy Sundays in Jordan's cluttered studio apartment overlooking the Savannah River, where the scent of turpentine mixed with fresh coffee, And Blake's hands learned the curve of Jordan's hips like a new language. Now, that language was on trial. Marcus cleared his throat, folding his arms over his polo shirt, the one Blake had bought him last Christmas. Look, sis, we get it. You're confused. But Dad's rolling in his grave. He built this for us straight. White picket fence Harlan pride. You think the board at your fancy firm wants whispers about you and some artist chick. His eyes flicked to Jordan with disdain. But there was calculation there too. The gamblers tell. Blake knew he'd been skimming from the petty cash she'd allocated for family emergencies. The room spun. A carousel of crystal and silverware blurring into the ghosts of Thanksgivings past. Blake pressed a palm to the table, steadying herself. Her tailored blouse suddenly too tight, like the expectations suffocating her. Confused, she echoed, her voice steadying into the boardroom timbre that closed million-dollar deals. I've funded your screw-ups for years. Marcus, your Vegas benders. Mom's renovations that were just facelifts for a sinking ship. And now you lecture me on pride? On family? Evelyn surged forward, snatching the checkbook from beside Blake's plate, the one she'd pulled out earlier. Habit. To cover the latest estate tax shortfall. With a rip that echoed like tearing flesh. She shredded the top check. Confetti fluttering to the floor. No more. You're cut off. If you choose this sin, you choose exile. The Harlans don't abide abominations. Jordan's grip tightened, her thumb stroking Blake's knuckles in silent promise. But Blake felt the fracture line spiderwebbing through her soul, the woman who'd always fixed things now utterly broken. She met her mother's gaze, saw the fear masquerading as righteousness, the desperation of a matriarch watching her empire crumble. Sin, Blake whispered, tasting the word like bile. You mean the only honest thing I've ever done? The dinner dissolved into chaos after that. Shouts overlapping like thunderclaps. Aunt Lydia invoking Leviticus while Marcus pocketed the silverware like a thief in his own home. Blake and Jordan fled into the balmy night. The estate's gravel crunching under their heels. The river's murmur a distant lullaby. They drove in silence to Jordan's apartment, the city lights smearing past like accusations. Inside, with the door bolted and rain pattering against the windows, Jordan pulled Blake into her arms, their bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth by touch. You're not their wallet anymore, Jordan murmured against Blake's temple, her lips brushing the bruise blooming on her cheek. You're mine. And I'm yours. If you'll have me. Blake sank into the kiss, hungry and healing, tongues tangling with the salt of tears. They made love on the worn rug by the window. Slow at first. Reverent, Jordan's fingers tracing the lines of Blake's body like she was mapping constellations, whispering praises in Spanish that made Blake arch and gasp. Eries me to do, Jordan breathed, her mouth hot on Blake's collarbone, hips grinding in a rhythm that built like a crescendo. Blake lost herself there. In the slick slide of skin. The way Jordan's breasts pressed soft and insistent against hers. Nipples peeking under her palms. Climax shattered them both. A release that wrung sobs from Blake's throat, not of pain, but of fierce, reclaimed joy. But dawn brought the reckoning. Blake's phone buzzed relentlessly, voicemails from the family lawyer. Texts from Marcus demanding one last loan. She'd been frozen out of the accounts overnight, Evelyn's doing. No doubt. Leveraging power of attorney from some dusty wool clause. Harlan Ventures was hers on paper. But the estate? The safety net? Stripped away in a heartbeat. Jordan watched her scroll through the notifications, coffee steaming on the nightstand. "We fight this," she said simply, rolling onto her side, the sheet pooling at her waist, exposing the curve of her hip. "You're not alone." Blake set the phone down, cupping Jordan's face, thumb tracing the freckles that dusted her like stars. "I know. But it's not just money. It's them. The only world I've known." Jordan's eyes darkened, that protective fire igniting. "Your world's whatever we build, Blake." Screw their version. They spent the day plotting, calling Blake's trusted CPA, who confirmed the lockout was legal but challengeable, sketching out a budget on Jordan's studio easel, where half-finished canvases leaned like sentinels. By evening, as the sun dipped low over the marshlands, Blake felt the first stirrings of rebellion. She wasn't just the wallet, she was the architect. Yet doubt gnawed at the edges. Late that night, as Jordan slept curled against her, Blake slipped out to the balcony, the humid air wrapping around her like a shroud. She dialed Marcus, the line crackling with static. "What do you want?" he slurred, clearly 3 whiskeys in. "To understand," Blake said, voice raw. "Why now? Why her?" Pause. Then a chuckle devoid of humor. "Because you're the fixer, sis. Always have been. But Mom's right, this changes everything. The church ladies are already whispering. And hey, if you wise up, maybe we can. Forget this hiccup. Forget." Rage flared, hot and clarifying. "You've forgotten how I bailed you out of that DUI last year. How I covered your bookies calls. I'm done being your sin offering." She hung up, the click final as a gavel. Below, the Savannah River churned black and restless, mirroring the tide turning in her veins. For the first time, loving Jordan didn't feel like a secret shame. It felt like salvation. But the family wasn't done extracting their pound of flesh. 2 days later, as Blake strode into Harlan Venture's glass-walled office overlooking the port, her assistant handed her a manila envelope, face pale. Inside, printouts of emails, forged from her account, authorizing transfers to Jordan's studio, framed as embezzlement. Marcus's signature lurked in the metadata, a digital Judas kiss. Betrayal hit like vertigo. Her brother, selling her out to the board, to the family, to anyone who'd listen. By noon, the calls flooded in, investors pulling stakes, whispers of scandal rippling through the conservative corridors of Savannah commerce. Blake's empire, built on trust, teetered on the brink. She drove straight to the estate, tires screeching on the oyster shell drive, storm clouds gathering like conspirators. Evelyn met her at the door, impeccable in linen and pearls, but her eyes betrayed the hollowness. "You shouldn't have come. Save it," Blake snapped, thrusting the envelope at her. "Marcus." This was him, wasn't it? "Poisoning the well because I won't play your game." Evelyn's lips thinned. "He did what was necessary. For the family." "Necessary." Blake laughed, bitter as chicory. "You mean desperate. You've leeched off me for years. Mom. Dad's ghost isn't the one haunting this place. It's your greed. Dressed up in scripture." The argument escalated, words flying like buckshot. Evelyn defending tradition, Blake dismantling the hypocrisy brick by brick. Rain began to fall in sheets, drumming the roof like judgment. And then Jordan arrived, Uninvited but inevitable. Her truck pulling up with headlights cutting through the deluge. She burst in, soaked and unyielding, eyes locking on Blake's. I got your text. We're in this. Evelyn recoiled as if burned. Get out. This is Harlan business. Jordan stepped forward, chin lifted, water dripping from her curls. Blake's my business. And from what I hear, y'all's been treating her like a damn ATM. Not a daughter. The confrontation crested then. Voices rising over the storm, Evelyn's accusations of moral decay, Jordan's fierce litany of Blake's sacrifices, Blake's own thunderous demand for truth. Marcus slunk in from the study, reeking of scotch. But one look at Jordan's glare sent him retreating. In the melee, Evelyn grabbed Blake's arm, nails digging in. Choose, Evelyn. Us or her. The sin. The room fell silent, save for the rain's relentless tattoo. Blake looked at her mother, saw the woman who'd sung her lullabies, taught her to curtsy at cotillions. Then at Jordan, the woman who'd taught her to fly. I choose me, Blake said, voice breaking free. And that means I choose her. She pulled away, lacing her fingers with Jordan's, and they walked out into the storm together, the door slamming like a full stop. The rain lashed their skin like accusations as they stumbled down the porch steps, the Harlan estate looming behind them like a mausoleum of what-ifs. Blake's slacks clung heavy, water sluicing off her in rivers, but Jordan's hand in hers was warm, anchoring, a promise etched in the chill. They reached the truck, Jordan fumbling keys with one hand, the other never leaving Blake's grasp. Drive, Blake urged, voice hoarse from the shouting. And Jordan did. Tires hydroplaning on the flooded drive until the mansion's lights faded to taillight glow in the rearview. Silence enveloped them, broken only by the wiper's frantic swipe and the occasional crack of thunder. Jordan glanced over, her profile sharp against the storm-lit dashboard, freckles stark, jaw set in that quiet determination Blake had fallen for in a heartbeat. You okay? She asked. Simple as breathing. Blake leaned her head against the window, the glass cool against her temple. I don't know. It's like I just burned my whole life down. The words hung heavy, laced with the ache of finality. She'd left without a backward glance. But the ghosts followed. Evelyn's crumpled expression, Marcus's averted eyes, the shredded check symbolizing a decade of indentured loyalty. Jordan reached over, squeezing her thigh. Nah. You lit a match to the bullshit. That's freedom. Baby. Her thumb traced circles, a small ritual of comfort, and Blake covered her hand, letting the touch ground her. They didn't speak of the forged emails or the board's panic. Those were tomorrow's wars. Tonight was survival. Jordan's apartment was a sanctuary of chaos. Canvases stacked against exposed brick walls. The air thick with the ghosts of oil paints and midnight muses. They stripped in the dim kitchen light, peeling wet clothes like old skin. Laughter bubbling up unexpectedly as Blake's blouse snagged on Jordan's earring. Naked and shivering, they tumbled into the clawfoot tub, hot water steaming up the mirror. Jordan's legs draped over Blake's as she soaped her shoulders with gentle strokes. Tell me something true, Blake murmured, eyes closing as Jordan's fingers worked knots from her neck. Jordan hummed, considering. I was scared shitless meeting your family. Thought they'd see right through me. The broke artist with a rap sheet from my dumbass teens. She paused, rinsing Blake's curls with a cupped hand. But you? You make me brave. Blake turned, water sloshing, to capture Jordan's mouth in a kiss that tasted of rain and resolve. Deep and slow. Exploratory. Jordan's breasts buoyant against hers in the suds, nipples hardening under the caress. Blake's hands roamed, cupping the swell of Jordan's ass, pulling her closer until their cores brushed, sparks igniting low. Jordan gasped into her mouth, hips rocking instinctive, and they moved together like that, lazy, languid, the water amplifying every slide and sigh. Orgasms built unhurried, cresting in shared shudders, Jordan's nails raking Blake's back as she whispered, "Te amo," fierce and fervent. After, wrapped in threadbare towels on the sagging couch, they plotted by candlelight Jordan's idea to set the mood for revolution. Blake's phone had gone dark. She'd powered it off. A small act of defiance. But the fallout was coming, swift as the squall outside. By morning, Harlan Ventures stock dipped 5 points on rumor alone, and a terse email from the board chairman summoned her for an emergency review. She dressed in armor, crisp white button-down, pencil skirt, heels that clicked authority. Jordan drove her downtown, parking curbside at the glass tower that bore her name. "Kick ass," Jordan said, leaning across the console for a kiss that lingered, tasting of coffee and courage. "And come home to me." The boardroom was a viper pit, suits from old Atlanta money, faces etched with judgment older than the Confederacy. Chairman Hargrove, silver-haired and sanctimonious, slid the envelope across the polished oak. These discrepancies. Harlan. Troubling. And the personal matters bleeding into the professional? We can't ignore the optics. Blake met his gaze, unflinching. "Optics? You mean my family forging documents to sabotage me because I love a woman?" Gasps rippled. She dropped the bomb deliberate, watching it detonate. She laid it all bare, the transfers, Marcus's hand, Evelyn's manipulations, not as confession, but as indictment. "I've built this company on integrity. If that's not enough for you, then perhaps it's time for new leadership." The room erupted in murmurs, alliances fracturing like fault lines. Hargrove blustered, but Blake held firm, her voice a scalpel dissecting their hypocrisies. By meeting's end, she'd bought time, an internal audit, her position intact pending proof. But the cost was etched in the side eyes, the whispered lifestyle choices trailing her to the elevator. Jordan waited outside, sketching idly on a napkin Blake's profile, fierce and unbowed. How'd it go? Like storming a castle with a butter knife. Blake slid in, exhaling long. "But I think I drew first blood." They celebrated small, po-boys from a riverside shack, eaten on a bench as gulls wheeled overhead. Jordan's laughter peeled back the tension, her stories of Brooklyn bodegas and graffiti tags a bomb. "Remember our first fight?" she teased, licking mayo from her thumb. "You called my tattoo gun a glorified stapler." Blake grinned. "Genuine. The first in days. And you said my spreadsheets were soul-sucking." Fair trade. Night fell soft, stars pricking the clearing sky. Back home, they made love with urgency, Jordan pinning Blake to the bed, mouth trailing fire down her abdomen, tongue delving between thighs slick with need. Blake arched, fingers fisting auburn waves, the world narrowing to Jordan's hums of pleasure, the coil tightening until release crashed over her in waves. Jordan followed, straddling her face, grinding slow and deep, her cries a symphony Blake conducted with lips and hands. But peace was fleeting. The next week blurred into siege, Private investigators sniffing around Jordan's past. A juvenile shoplifting charge from foster care days. Spun into questionable associates. Evelyn's doing. Blake knew. The matriarch wielding social levers like weapons. Then Marcus called. Voice oily. Sis. Mom's offering a deal. Come clean, say it's a mistake. Cut ties with the tattoo girl. We'll make the emails vanish. Blake's grip tightened on the phone. Knuckles whitening. And if I don't? Sigh. Performative. Then we go public. Church bulletin. Society pages, the works. Harlan name in the mud. Your call. Betrayal's knife twisted deeper. Her brother. Blood of her blood. Trading her heart for clean ledgers. She hung up. Nausea rising. And drove to the estate unannounced. The sun high and merciless. Evelyn was in the garden. Pruning azaleas with surgical precision. Her sundress pristine amid the petals. You put him up to it, Blake accused. Voice steady despite the quake inside. Evelyn didn't look up. Shears snipping. Family protects family. Your loss, Blake. That woman, she's a temptation. A test from the Lord. A test. Blake stepped closer. Gravel biting her soles. You've tested me my whole life, made me your crutch. Your confessor. Dad died. And you turned me into the man of the house before I could grieve. I loved you for it, Mom. But this? Weaponizing my love. Evelyn's hand stilled. Shears dangling. For a heartbeat. Vulnerability cracked through. Eyes glistening. Lips parting on unspoken apology. I did what I had to. For us. For legacy. Legacy, Blake echoed. Hollow. Yours. Not mine. She turned to leave. But Evelyn's voice stopped her. Small and shattered. Stay. Please. We can fix this therapy. Prayer. Be my girl again. The plea hung. A siren's call to the daughter who'd once idolized her. Blake's chest ached. Torn between the pull of blood and the truth of her heart. But Jordan's face flashed, smiling over sketch pads. Fierce in the rain, and she straightened. I am your girl. Just not the one you engineered. Driving away. Tears blurred the live oaks. But clarity sharpened within. She wouldn't just survive this, she'd thrive beyond it. Jordan sensed the shift that night. As they lay entwined. Her head on Blake's chest. What's brewing in that brilliant head? A counterstrike, Blake said. Fingers idly tracing Jordan's tattoo. Time to rewrite the Harlan story on my terms. They dove in. Blake's lawyer filed for embezzlement charges against Marcus. Evidence ironclad from digital forensics. The family accounts? Frozen pending audit. Evelyn's empire of IOUs exposed. Whispers turned to headlines. Savannah heiress exposes kin's fraud. And the board, smelling blood, rallied behind Blake. Her personal fortitude spun into asset. But the emotional toll mounted. Sleepless nights where Blake paced the apartment. Ghosts of disapproval haunting her steps. Jordan held her through it. Their lovemaking a ritual of reaffirmation, tender one night. With featherlight touches and shared breaths. Feral the next. Bodies slamming in a frenzy of need. Jordan's strap-on thrusting deep as Blake clawed the sheets. Screaming release. Climax brewed at the family church's annual gala, a black tie affair in the historic cathedral, where Savannah's elite preened under stained glass saints. Evelyn had sent an olive branch, an invitation. Neutral. For reconciliation. Blake went. Jordan on her arm. both in gowns that turned heads, Blake's emerald silk hugging her curves, Jordan's crimson number with a thigh-high slit revealing her rose vine. The nave buzzed with murmurs as they entered. Evelyn's glare from the front pew a laser. Marcus hovered by the punch bowl, sweat beading his brow. But it was Aunt Lydia who struck first, cornering them by the altar. Repent, child, before it's too late. Jordan's laugh was sharp. Repent for what? Loving hard? That's your sin. Lady, hating what you don't understand. The confrontation escalated, drawing a crowd. Evelyn rose, gliding forward like a specter in ivory lace. Enough. Blake, this ends now. No, Blake said, voice carrying to the rafters. It begins. You've called me sin for loving her. But the real sin's been yours using me, breaking me, all while preaching purity. She pulled a folder from her clutch, bank statements, ledgers, the ugly math of their dependence. Gasps echoed as she distributed copies, the truth unfurling like a banner. Evelyn's face drained to ash. You wouldn't. I already have. Blake's hand found Jordan's, their fingers interlocking unbreakable. I'm done funding your lies. But if you want real family, start with forgiveness. Not for me, for yourself. The gala fractured then, whispers exploding into exodus. Marcus bolted, Evelyn collapsing into a pew, sobs racking her frame. Blake lingered, heart fracturing anew at the sight. Her mother dripped bare, human at last. Jordan tugged gently. Come on. Let's get you home. Outside, the night air was velvet, stars winking approval. In the truck, Blake broke, tears hot and cathartic, Jordan pulling over to hold her, rocking like a child. I lost them, Blake whispered. You gained you, Jordan countered, kissing her eyelids. And us. That's the win. Weeks blurred into a tentative thaw. The Harlan scandal simmering like sweet tea left too long in the sun. Harlan Ventures rebounded stronger. Blake at the helm with a transparency clause in her contracts that became industry gospel. Investors flocked, drawn to the narrative of resilience, a black queer woman rising from ashes of betrayal. Her story splashed across Forbes and local rags alike. But the real reconstruction was quieter. Therapy sessions in a sun-dappled office overlooking Forsyth Park, where Blake unpacked the weight of wallet, learning to invest in herself first. Jordan thrived too. Her studio buzzing with commissions, portraits of defiant women, inspired by Blake's fire. They'd moved into a craftsman bungalow on the city's east side. A fixer-upper with creaky floors and a porch swing where they'd sip porch wine at dusk. Jordan's head on Blake's shoulder. The river's hush a backdrop to their easy silences. Yet the family's shadow lingered. Evelyn's calls went unanswered at first. Voicemails a litany of pleas laced with scripture. Marcus vanished into rehab. Courtesy of a plea deal Blake's influence softened. Aunt Lydia sent passive-aggressive cards. Psalms underlined in red. Blake deleted them all. But Jordan saw the toll. The way Blake's smile faltered at mentions of magnolias. The hollow echo in her laugh during family anecdotes from friends. One humid August evening, a cicadas chorused outside. Jordan broached it over gumbo simmering on the stove. What if you let her in? Not all the way. But a crack. Blake stirred the roux. Wooden spoon scraping iron like a confession. She called us sin. Joe. That doesn't fade with a sorry. Jordan slid behind her. Arms encircling waist. Chin on shoulder. I know. But you're not the forgiving type out of weakness. You're the strong one, always have been. Maybe that's the final fuck you. Showing mercy they don't deserve. The words burrowed deep, stirring the embers of the daughter who'd once chased fireflies with her mother in the estate's lawns. Blake turned, tasting the spice on Jordan's lips in a kiss that started soft, exploratory, but ignited quick, hands roaming under shirts, thumbs circling nipples to peaks. They migrated to the counter, Jordan hoisting Blake up, legs wrapping instinctive as mouths devoured. Fingers delve, slick and sure. Blake's gasps mingling with Jordan's groans, climaxes sinking in a messy, magnificent rush that left them laughing, breathless, étouffée forgotten on the burner. Emboldened, Blake extended the olive branch. Coffee at a neutral cafe downtown. No frills. No family peanut gallery. Evelyn arrived early, perched at the wrought iron table like a bird of paradise gone to seed, hair silvering at the temples, lines etched deeper around eyes that still held a flicker of the woman who'd baked pecan pies from scratch. They ordered black. No sugar, Evelyn's habit, mirrored unconsciously by Blake. Silence stretched, broken by the clink of spoons. You look well, Evelyn ventured, voice small. I am. Blake's tone was even, guarded. Jordan's good for me. We're building something real. Evelyn's fingers twisted her napkin, shredding edges. I was wrong. About everything. The money. The lies. I was scared. Blake. Of losing the only piece of your father left. Of what the world would take from you. The admission cracked something in Blake. A dam breached. You didn't lose Dad in me. You lost me by trying to control me. Calling my love a sin? That's not protection. Mom. That's poison. Tears welled. Unbidden. Evelyn dabbed them with a linen hanky. Monogrammed H for Harlan or heartbreak. I know. Church twisted me. Society too. But seeing you stand there, folder in hand, I saw the woman I failed to raise. Strong. Unashamed. Pause. Raw. Forgive an old fool? Blake's throat tightened, the weight of years pressing. She thought of Jordan's rose tattoo, beauty from thorns, and reached across, covering Evelyn's hand. Not yet. But maybe. We start over. As equals. No wallets. Just us. Evelyn's smile trembled, fragile as first bloom. They talked then, haltingly, of Dad's unpublished poems, Marcus's progress in group, the azaleas wilting without care. No miracles, but a seed planted, watered by tentative honesty. Word spread, the family orbit shifted. Lydia sent an unmarked card, proud of you, and Marcus emerged from rehab, gaunt but genuine, mailing a letter of amends that Blake read aloud to Jordan over takeout Thai. He sounds sorry, Jordan said. Chopsticks paused. Like he gets it now. He might. Blake fed her a noodle. Playful. Or he's just scared of prison chic. Laughter came easier after that. A bridge to normalcy. Blake proposed on a crisp October afternoon, down on one knee in the studio amid paint-splattered dropcloths. A ring fashioned from Jordan's discarded silver wire, twisted into infinity. Marry me, she said, voice thick. Not because you're my escape, but my everything. Jordan's yes was a whoop, pulling Blake up into a spin that smeared cerulean on her cheek. They celebrated with neighbors, barbecue on the lawn, Strings of Edison bulbs swaying in the breeze. Jordan's arm around Blake's waist as they danced to Motown under the oaks. The wedding was intimate, unapologetic, a riverside ceremony at sunset. Blake in a cream pantsuit that hugged her frame. Jordan in flowing boho with wildflowers woven into her curls. Evelyn sat front row, eyes misty, clutching a handkerchief. Marcus stood as best man, sober and steady, his toast a halting tribute to the sister who saved us from ourselves. Vows exchanged, rings simple as promises. In your fire I find home, Blake murmured. Jordan's, and in your strength my wings. Sealed with a kiss that drew cheers and a few scandalized gasps from distant cousins. Honeymoon in the Keys. Sun-bleached beaches. Conch fritters. Nights tangled in hammocks where Jordan's mouth mapped every inch of Blake anew, teasing licks along inner thighs. Fingers curling just so until Blake shattered. Then reversing. Jordan riding her tongue to ecstasy under a canopy of stars. Back in Savannah. Life wove forward. Harlan Ventures expanded. Blake mentoring queer entrepreneurs. Her story a beacon. Jordan's gallery show sold out. Canvases of intertwined lovers earning raves. And the family? Fractured but mending, Sunday brunches tentative. Evelyn learning pronouns over mimosas. Marcus crashing game nights with awkward dad jokes. One evening, as snow flurried rare and magical over the city, a southern anomaly, Blake and Jordan stood on their porch, mug steaming, watching flakes dust the live oaks. Jordan leaned into her, breath fogging the air. Think we made it? Blake kissed her temple, tasting salt and forever. We didn't just make it. We rewrote the ending. In the quiet, with the world white and waiting, Blake felt the humanism of it all, not triumph over tragedy, but grace in the gray. She'd been the wallet once, a vessel for others' sins. Now, she was whole, loved fiercely, loving freely. The Harlan name just a footnote to her truth. And in Jordan's arms, that truth bloomed eternal, thorns and all.